What's up, people? Happy week 4. I hope everything's going real well. Hope you're enjoying this winter. This is a spring class, but clearly it's winter. It's winter time. Hope everything's going well with you. I'm gonna get into what we're doing this week, so that way you can get started. There's a lot less things to do this week. This is the only lecture you have to watch. I bet you're pretty happy about that. Okay, you probably have seen enough of this guy right here. I can't blame you. But also I can't blame you if you want more. Okay, so but I only have 30 minutes to do this lecture, so we need to zippity zap, zip, 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 zap, and get going, okay? So let's get started here. Let's see. Oh, this again. Slideshow. Let's get started from beginning. Okay. Oh no. Hold on. Sorry, we had some technical difficulties, but now we're back on track. All right. So this whole unit, not sure if you know, has been on the female perspective. Okay. And at this point, we are done reading things for this unit, and we are moving now into essay options. Okay. This lecture is about preparing for essay 1, and all these lectures from this point forward are going to be about working on essay 1 until essay 1 is due, and then we'll start unit 2, which is on poetry. Okay. All right, so these are some of your options in which you can write your essay on. Okay. This first one is a feminist reading of The Story of an Hour by applying 3 quotes of Simone de Beauvoir to the story and discussing how they relate to the main character. That can be one of your essays. You will write a 5-paragraph essay, all on The Story of an Hour. In each of your body paragraphs, you would have a different Simone de Beauvoir quote to be applying to your story. A feminist reading of The Adulterous Woman by applying, guess what? 3 quotes of Simone de Beauvoir to the story and discussing how they relate to the main character. What? Okay. Very similar, but instead it's just the Adulterous Woman. Check this. A feminist reading of Hills Like White Elephants by, you got it, applying 3 quotes of Simone de Beauvoir to the story and discussing how they relate to the main character. What? An existentialist reading of 3 of the stories we have read in this unit: The Story of an Hour, The Adulterous Woman, Hills Like White Elephants, and Or the Sea Change. Okay, you're picking 3 of those to write about. So you'd really just spend 1 paragraph writing about each of the stories. 1 paragraph about The Story of an Hour, 1 paragraph about The Adulterous Woman, 1 paragraph about Hills Like White Elephants. You could apply the waiter metaphor to 3 stories and discuss how 3 characters were trying to pretend to be something they weren't. And finally, they broke out of those roles. You could also talk about to go back on to number 4 before we go to 5. You can talk about the Le Petit Mort in one of those as well, if you want to discuss that, since we spent a lot of time talking about that. A compare-contrast reading of The Story of an Hour and The Adulterous Woman, the similarities and differences. You could, or just your own topic, as long as you are writing about those 3 stories and you are not summarizing, but you are analyzing and breaking the stories down and discussing them, like their themes, the bigger messages. Okay, those are your options. So you're gonna need to pick one of those options for essay 1. Here's some differences between essay 1 versus essay 2 in the way I'm grading them. Okay, essay 1 is focused mostly on MLA formatting and using quotes. That's going to be the main thing. Is the MLA formatting correct? And have you integrated quotes correctly? Okay. When we get into essay 2, we'll be more focused on these things, but also about the essay structure, about the flow of it, about your body paragraphs, those types of things. Okay. This first thing though is mostly about all format. Requirements. Regardless of your topic, your essay must adhere to the following. Be a minimum of 3 full pages, which to be safe, it should at least be 4 pages, not including the works cited page. Okay? It needs to be 3 full pages for the possibility of getting full credit. Okay? If it's 2.5 pages, there's no chance of getting full credit. Okay? You got to have a works cited page, including the stories you used in one secondary source. You are going to do it. I will put together the correct citations for your stories. I'll provide that. You still need to include those, but I'm gonna upload a document where you can copy and paste those. But you are gonna have to use a secondary source, a source from outside of all of these, and you will have to include that on your own. Proper MLA formatting: last name, page numbers, heading, 12-point font, professional font. Parenthetical citations, citing your quotes, which I'm gonna go over again. Okay, and you got to make sure you integrate quotes, that you use quotes correctly in your paper. Okay, again, this is a writing course. I am more concerned about how you're communicating and if you're doing it correctly than what you're saying. Okay, I don't have to necessarily agree with your ideas, but you need to be communicating in a correct way. But that's not to say that you can just turn in any type of paper. It still needs to follow the instructions. So it needs to be about the things that we've covered and discussed. Okay, but the main focus is how that's all formatted and structured. Okay, so by February 5th, which really by February 6th, okay, you need to submit an outline. Then on February 12th, by then you're going to draft your rough draft of Essay 1. And then by the 19th, you're going to complete the final draft of Essay 1 and submit your paper. And then I'll begin grading essays, which could take up to 2 weeks to finish all of them. All right, so we're going to talk about some grammar stuff and doing research, since you have to use one outside source. Okay. Sorry, I had to pause and go get a drink. My throat's dry. This is the best drink in the world. It is Kroger seltzer water and sugar-free Hawaiian punch packets. And together, oh, bottoms up. Mm. Ooh, it's crisp. It's cold. Doesn't make my chin fat. Oh, it's fantastic. All right. Okay, so you got to use research in this essay. And because you're writing about 3 stories, I'm only making you pull one outside source. But I'm going to triple that when we get to essay 2. Essay 2, you'll be having to pull together 3 outside sources, okay? The outside sources are what we call secondary sources. Your major source is the book you're reading or the text you're analyzing, the short stories. And then your secondary sources is the research you'll be pulling together to support your ideas. Now, when you go in to research, okay, you have sort of 2 options. First is finding a source that I refer to as a supportive source, supportive research, okay? And this supports your analysis because the author shares your perspective. So let's say you're writing about the adulterous woman. Supportive research would be you finding someone who's also talking about the adulterous woman, and you borrow their ideas. Or they happen to correlate to what you already thought, and so you use their ideas as well, okay? And so you pull someone's quote that's talking about the same story that you are writing about. That's supportive research. Then there is, so like for example, your topic is about the main character in the yellow wallpaper, okay? And this character becomes insane because of the setting. So let's say you found this article haunted house, haunted heroine, female gothic closets in the yellow wallpaper. This research is on the story that you are writing, and it directly supports what you're saying. Okay, this is supportive research. And let's say you use this quote. The immediate and most disturbing implication is that she is infantilized in this former nursery. That relates directly to the main character of your story. Okay. Now, but sometimes you can't find a quote or a piece of research or a writer who's talking about this specific thing you're discussing. Like, for example, The Sea Change. The Sea Change is not a popular Hemingway story. Even though it's by a popular author, it's not a popular story at all. So you might be hard pressed to find anything about The Sea Change. But that's all right, though. Because then instead you can find what I refer to as topical research. Okay? Research that indirectly supports your analysis by applying the research to your topic. So, for example, your topic is about how the main character in the yellow wallpaper becomes insane because of the setting. So, let's say you can't find research on the yellow wallpaper, but you can find information about how people go insane based upon their surroundings. So you might come across this piece of research. Social isolation and mental health, a conceptual and methodological, big word, review. This research is not on the yellow wallpaper, but it is about how people can go crazy based upon their setting. So then you can find this quote. Previous studies have identified an association between loneliness and depression, loneliness and suicidal behavior, loneliness and personality disorders and psychosis. Now, that quote directly relates to the main character in the yellow wallpaper, if you've ever read that story, because she's alone, this main character, she's lonely, and she becomes depressed, and she goes into a deep psychosis. Okay, so like I would use this quote to apply it to my analysis of the story. All right. So you can find supportive research or topical. You can find quotes about the story you're reading. You can find quotes that's actually about the story of an hour, or you might find quotes that are about women feeling like they're stuck in a loveless marriage and they've lost who they are as people, and you relate that quote, that idea, to Janine in The Adulterous Woman. Okay, either one's fine. So you only need one outside piece of research, one secondary source, okay, for this essay. You're writing about your every paragraph is going to have a quote from the primary source, but you only have to apply the secondary source to one paragraph. You can use BiblioGuides and Galileo for your research, which you go online to the online library database, and you can click on LibGuides, or you go to Galileo, and in Galileo, you can research it, all right? Or you can use reliable web sources, all right, that come from reliable sources like BBC, Vulture, New York Times, Psychology Today, websites that have an actual publication. So let's say you're doing the Literary Reference Center, okay? You're doing Galileo, and you're going to do EBSCO, Literary Reference Center, okay? Well, like you would begin by maybe typing in the story that you're researching. Like, let's say I'm hypothetically doing the story, where are you going? Where have you been? And then I would want to click on the advanced settings in that. And then I might type in like, well, I want to discuss theme, or I want to discuss loneliness, or I want to discuss existentialism, or I want to discuss depression. Then you would hit search and see if you could find an article that you could use to help you understand your story better or to understand the characters better. Okay, and then you can try to read it. And the great thing about using EBSCO or Galileo is that it will provide the citation for you. When you're reading your article, there are these icons on the right hand side, and you can click on this icon, and it's all the different ways to cite the sources. Type this as a source, and so you would just scroll down to the MLA one, and you would copy and paste that citation because you will need a citation on the outline that's due this week, which I'm going to go over in a moment. Okay, so you definitely want to. It's Galileo is harder. It's harder to find your source on that because you have to filter through so much. But when you do, though, it's the easiest to cite. So that's good. And so then you read the article and you find a quote that you want to use. Okay. So let's say like I read this quote. Let's say this quote works well with my paper. Then I would pull it out and I would put it in my outline, which I want to show you in a moment. Okay. If you are going to conduct internet-based research on Google, then you need to use news sources that have that are highly respected. Like any source that's part of the Associated Press, the AP, and you'll be able to see that on the website if you pull like a Atlanta Journal-Constitution. That's an Associated Press news source. The New York Times is very reliable. Vulture, The Atlantic, Slate, The Guardian, The Economist, Forbes, The Washington Times, Psychology Today, New York Magazine. Okay, these are reliable sources that you can use for research. Okay, things you shouldn't be using like Wikipedia, Dictionary.com, Fox News, CNN News. You can come in. Sorry, had a guest. So these are some things that you should not use. Okay, don't use Fox News, CNN News. Don't use online encyclopedias. Now, look, if you come across something from like CNN, I'm sure you can find a similar article on the same topic written in the New York Times or the Atlantic or the Economist. Okay, same thing with Fox News. If you can't, then that's a problem. Okay, and if also, well, yeah, okay. So I'm gonna leave it at that. All right. When in doubt, though, you can always send me a link and I can look at it to see if I think it's reliable or not. Okay. Yeah, and Google will be more useful when conducting topical research rather than supportive. All right, so Wikipedia. While you should never quote Wikipedia, you can cite the sources from the bibliography of a Wikipedia page. Let's say you wanted to study microaggressions in the sea change. You're writing a paper about that. Okay. And you found this quote from Wikipedia, which is really hard to read. In focus groups, individuals identifying as bisexual report such microaggressions as others denying or dismissing their self-narratives or identity claims, being unable to understand or accept bisexuality as a possibility, pressuring them to change their bisexual identity, expecting them to be sexually promiscuous, and questioning their ability to maintain monogamous relationships. Okay, so you read that. If you notice right here, this 34, this is a citation. It tells you that this is like a quote pretty much, all right, or at least a paraphrase. If you click on that right there, it takes you to the citation page, okay? And then here is the citation. Like Wikipedia, people are like, oh, it's unreliable because anybody can write it. Yeah, some pages are very unreliable, but some pages are also very useful, especially if they have a lot of research. If people took time to include all of their academic references. So like that 34, that quote took us here to this. So it comes from actually this research. So you could cite this quote. Oops. You could cite this quote, but you wouldn't cite Wikipedia. You would use this citation in your paper for it, okay? Because that's where that quote came from. So you could write something like many people, Phil elicits microaggressions toward his girlfriend because he is refusing, quote, to understand or accept bisexuality as a possibility. Bostwick, because Bostwick is whose idea that actually is. It's one way that you can kind of manipulate Wikipedia for your use, okay? But you just never cite actually Wikipedia. Titles and quotation marks. So this is a reminder about how titles of short stories, poems, articles, songs, and episodes of TV shows go inside of quotation marks. Okay, so like this week, you're writing about the story of an hour, so it should be in quotation marks. If you find an article called Understanding Chopin, it should be in quotation marks. All right. While titles of books, films, and magazines are in italics, none of these will, if you quote Simone, you're quoting her book, The Second Sex, that's the title of her book. That would be in italics, okay? So you would need to italicize if you're citing the title of a book or an actual magazine or newspaper, like the New York Times. So these are basic notes about punctuating quotation marks. I'm not going to go over this right now because I'm going to run out of time. I really want to go over the outline. All right. So I've gone over these things before, and I want you to review these notes, especially since I'm posting them on in week 4, to make sure that you are following the directions. People, I've noticed in your classwork, a lot of you are doing this, story of an hour with a comma on the outside. That's incorrect. It needs to be on the inside of quotation marks. I will be grading you on your punctuation. So you need to make sure that you're doing it correctly. All right, people are doing this. That's incorrect. The period goes inside of the quotation mark. So please make sure you read through these notes on style and make sure that you do this correctly. Okay, I'm going to jump down to the outline. I've gone over this before, like a couple weeks ago. So you need to make sure that you understand how to properly integrate quotes. Okay, that this is on you. Okay, essay 1 outline. This is the grade for this week. Go to the week 4 tab, and you'll see outline essay 1 template and outline essay 1 example, and then the essay 1 outline Dropbox. Okay, you should download this and type your template, type your outline in this, and then you should download this so you can look at the way that yours should look as an end product. Okay. So when you open the outline, this is what you're going to see. This is the template. You should be typing inside the template. Okay. Step 1 is the header and heading. This is the way you open it up, and this is what you need to do. You need to put your last name up here. And you need to put your first and last name here, my name, the class, and the due date. You can put February 6th. That's fine. All right. Step 1, header and heading. This is the header and this is the heading. Yeah, how confusing is that? Next, copy and paste your essay prompt and list next to the thesis statement the main things you'll focus on. So previously, like this. This time says, I went back and I copy and pasted this prompt, an existentialist reading of 3 of the stories we have read in this unit. And so that's the prompt, and I'm putting that there so that way it kind of reminds you like what I'm doing in my essay. And for my thesis, I'm going to focus on these 3 characters: Josephine, and I'm going to focus on her freedom and death; Janine's self-reconciliation; and Phil's self-acceptance. Okay, so I'm talking about Story of an Hour, The Torturous Woman, and The Sea Change. Okay, so I copy and pasted my prompt, and I listed in the thesis statement section what I'm going to be focusing on specifically. Don't just put the titles of the stories because there's so much to say. Be specific. You're focusing on this thing from the story. Next, fill in the main points that correlate to your thesis statements. So what I did was, since I'm talking about Josephine's love petite mort, Janine's self-reconciliation, and Phil's self-acceptance, I'm putting that here in main point 1, 2, and 3. Josephine's Le Petit Mort in The Story of an Hour. Main point 2, Janine's self-reconciliation in The Adulterous Woman. Main point 3, Phil's self-acceptance in The Sea Change. Those are the topics for each of my 3 body paragraphs. Body paragraph 1 is on Josephine. Body paragraph 2 is on Janine. And body paragraph 3 is on Phil. Okay. Step 4. Find a quote you will use from the story or stories for each paragraph. Okay, so there should be 3 quotes here in your outline. 3 different quotes from either, if you're writing about one story, it should be 3 different quotes from your story. If you're writing about 3 different stories, it should be 1 quote for each story. Right here I have trees that were all aquiver with the new spring life. The delicious breath of rain was in the air. The notes of a distant song, which someone was singing, reached her faintly. Open. For Janine's reconciliation, I have the quote, she was weeping copiously, unable to restrain herself. It's nothing, dear, she said, it's nothing. And then for the sea change quote I have, his voice sounded very strange. He did not recognize it. He looked at him quickly. He was settled into something. These are the quotes I'm going to use in my paper. Okay, this first paragraph, I'm writing about Josephine's Le Petit Mort in The Story of an Hour. And I'm going to weave in this quote from the story, talk about it. Main paragraph 2, I'm talking about her self-reconciliation. And then I'm going to use this quote in my body paragraph to prove my points. Okay. The quote you put in the outline should be the quote that you use in your essay. Okay. This outline will turn into an essay. You're just mapping it out. 5. Insert your secondary source quote and the citation where you plan on using it. You only have to have one secondary source. So you're not going to have a source in every single body paragraph. Okay. In my hypothetical essay, I decided to use my secondary source for my first body paragraph about Josephine. Oops. Okay. Where I found this quote from Edmund Burke. The passions belonging to self-preservation are the strongest of all the passions. This is a topical quote. This is not about The Story of an Hour, but I'm applying it to The Story of an Hour. Okay. And then I had copy and pasted the citation, and I placed it here at the bottom of my outline where it says works cited. Okay. I just copy and pasted it right there. So I already have my citation already ready. So when I write my paper, I can just I already have my works cited page pretty much written. And then I'll just have to copy and paste the citations, the correct ones that I will send out to all y'all later about the stories. And the final step, just give it a title. A title of mine, Learning to Die. All right. So because in a sense, Josephine really dies. Here she kills her side that is all depressed. Okay, I'm gonna make some sort of, I don't know, pun about death. Okay, and that's it. And then you need to submit it by February 6th. This is the way yours should look. Your name, the proper heading. You should have your main points, a quote from the story for each of them, and then a secondary quote. All right. This is the way yours should look. Now, the template that I uploaded for y'all is all double spaced. I didn't double space this example for the PowerPoint because it wouldn't fit if it was all double spaced. I wanted you to be able to see it all, okay? But this is exactly how yours should look. And like I said, I uploaded this exact example right here. This example is all double spaced. So you can open this on Blackboard and see exactly how yours should look, okay? If you're writing about just one story, one of the stories, you should have 3 different quotes because you're talking about 3 different things dealing with that story. Okay? Like if you're doing the adulterous woman, you could apply one paragraph could be about her how she what her life was like and how she kind of like turned her back on herself, how she like gave up everything for Marcel and she was unhappy and she was just going through life miserably. And the next paragraph could be about how she was miserable because of she was living in bad faith. You can talk about the waiter and about how she was being this idea of a housewife, even though it didn't really speak to her. And then paragraph 3 could be about her Le Petite Mort and how she had to kill that side of herself and have a rebirth essentially, and that like she was an adulterous woman because she had an affair on herself. She turned her back on herself. Okay, so you'd have 3 different quotes and 3 different things you discuss about that one story. Okay. All right. If you have any questions about this, then please let me know. Okay. You are going to submit it online right here. All right. And I'm going to upload all these the notes in the PowerPoint. So by the time you open this up, you'll see it, the notes up here. All right, y'all. I hope everything goes well. Let me know if you have any questions. Bye.